In a quote sometimes attributed to the leader of the Russian Revolution, the Irish Citizen Army is often referred to as the first Red Army in Europe. But who was this group that warranted such a compliment, and what can be learnt from their history today? The Irish Citizen Army was established and forged in the fires of class struggle, in the greatest battle between the working class and capitalist class seen yet in Ireland, the Great Dublin Lockout of 1913. The lockout was an epic struggle that saw 20,000 Dublin workers, led by James Connolly and Jim Larkin, take on a gang of 400 capitalist bosses, led by William Martin Murphy, on the issue of the workers' right to join a trade union, specifically the Irish Transport and General Workers Union, the first independent Irish trade union of modern times. On the 31st of August, Larkin addressed the prohibited rally of workers on O'Connell Street. The Dublin Metropolitan Police, a British colonial militia, attacked the strikers' rally, arrested Larkin, and went on a bloody rampage through the working class areas of the city. It was in response to this violent attack on the workers that the Irish Citizen Army was formed. At a rally in Beresford Place on the 13th of November, James Connolly addressed the crowd and said, "I'm going to talk sedition. The next time we're out for a march, I want to be accompanied by 4 battalions of trained men. I want them to come with their corporals, sergeants, and people to form force." It's said that in response to Connolly's call for the establishment of the Citizen Army, more than 1,000 hands were raised at the rally. The ICA immediately sprang into action, and drilling and training was organised under Captain Jack White at Croydon Park, a building and grounds owned by the ITGWU in North Dublin. The Citizen Army was also quickly active in resisting evictions, particularly in support of the striking workers and their families, as well as in establishing a soup kitchen at Liberty Hall to feed the starving workers and their families. This was socialist republicanism in action. The Citizen Army began providing security and protection to marches and rallies organised by the workers. In the early days, the ICA were armed with little more than hurls and pickaxe handles topped with lead. It's a testament to the commitment and discipline of the ICA that once they were established, the police never attacked a workers' demonstration during the lockout again, proving the potency of Marx and Engels' maxim that the working class needs to have its own independent fighting organisations. Before going any further, a quick word on today's sponsor. Today's video has been made possible by Ireland's oldest radical bookshop, Connolly Books, which is currently celebrating its 90th year in existence and is run by the Communist Party of Ireland. Connolly Books has a rich revolutionary history, being founded in its initial iteration by the Revolutionary Workers Group in 1932, international solidarity at home and abroad. Pop in for a chat. Named after Ireland's revolutionary socialist martyr James Connolly, Connolly Books specialises in Marxist classics. Books is about support, class barrier exists. You'll find all Connolly compiled working class struggle, both past and present. Alongside books, Connolly Books also ships up to open from Facebook and for their ongoing work over the decades in keeping James Constitution was adopted that marked the ICA out as a socialist republican organisation and the vanguard of revolution in Ireland. The Constitution declared that 1. The first and last principle of the Irish Citizen Army is the avowal that the ownership of Ireland, moral and material, is vested of right in the people of Ireland. 2. That the Irish Citizen Army shall stand for absolute unity of Irish nationhood, and shall support the rights and liberties of the democracies of all nations. 3. That one of its objectives shall be to sink all differences of birth, property and creed under the name of the common Irish people. 4. That the Irish Citizen Army shall be open to all who accept the principle of equal rights and opportunities for the Irish people. 5. Before being enrolled, every applicant must, if eligible, be a member of his or her trade union, such a trade union to be recognised by the Irish Trades Union Congress. Principal object: to arm and train all Irishmen capable of bearing arms, to enforce and defend its first principle. A new Army Council was established, which included Jim Larkin, James Connolly, Sean O'Casey and Constance Markovich. When Larkin left for America in 1914, James Connolly became the commandant of the Citizen Army, and it took on a more openly revolutionary republican position. Connolly, a leading Marxist, was on the same wavelength as Lenin at this time, and was openly proclaiming that the working class have no part in the coming European war, except to wage revolution against imperialism. Indeed, on the very outbreak of the imperialist war, the Irish Citizen Army hung a large banner from their headquarters at Liberty Hall that read, "We serve neither King nor Kaiser, but Ireland." The Irish Citizen Army was making clear that they stood for Irish independence and intended to use the European war to stage a revolution in Ireland. It was for this reason that the ICA was openly involved in the Howth and Kilcoole gun runnings in 1913, and why Connolly put together a team of volunteers to work specifically on acquiring arms for the ICA, most notably through Glasgow in Scotland, where there was a large Irish working class diaspora and strong support for the ICA. Connolly now used the pages of the Workers' Republic newspaper to openly preach the need for a revolution in Ireland, more specifically for an armed uprising against British imperialism to break the yoke upon the necks of the Irish workers. Another aspect of the ICA marked them out as clear revolutionaries at this point. From the beginning, the Citizen Army recruited women as equals to men, giving them leadership positions and full combat roles. Some of the key ICA women from this time would go on to become household names, remaining committed to the revolutionary Republican cause throughout their lives. Some of the key women included Constance Markievicz, Helena Maloney, Elizabeth O'Farrell, Jenny Shanahan, Dr. Kathleen Lynn, Madeline French Mullen, and Margaret Skinner. All would play a leading role in the fight for freedom, serving as officers of the ICA, and some even serving on the organisation's Army Council. By January 1916, the open militancy of the ICA and its commitment to a revolutionary uprising had attracted the attention of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, a petty bourgeois republican organisation that was secretly planning an uprising. Connolly was approached by the Military Council of the IRB, who outlined their plan to him, and it was agreed that the ICA would join with the IRB and its open military organisation, the Irish Volunteers, to stage an armed rebellion against British rule in Ireland at Easter 1916. Through the efforts of the ICA, along with the IRB, Ireland now had its united front for national liberation. While the story of 1916 is well known and there isn't enough time to cover it in depth in this video, a few remarks about the role of the ICA in that uprising are important. Firstly, it should be noted that James Connolly, as the commandant of the ICA, addressed the Citizen Army in advance of the rising and told its fighters to hold on to their rifles to carry forward the fight not just for national liberation, but for social liberation too. This is important in demonstrating the role of the ICA as a Red Army in Ireland. Secondly, it's important to note that Connolly was the commander of the Republican forces in Dublin, and that the ICA fought with incredible discipline at several of the Republican garrisons, including the GPO, Stephen's Green, the College of Surgeons, Dublin Castle, Moore Street, and others. 15 volunteers of the ICA fell fighting imperialism in 1916. Michael Mallon, the Army's Chief of Staff, and Commandant General James Connolly were executed by British firing squad. But the story of the ICA didn't end there, far from it. In the aftermath of 1916, many of the ICA's volunteers found themselves rounded up and interned in camps in England. But crucially, some fighters remained at large and were able to keep the army operational, particularly some of the women. Directly after the 1916 rising, the public face of the ICA became the Connolly-Mallon Social and Athletic Organisation, which was used as a cover to continue drilling and training. Arms dumps that hadn't been captured after the rising were opened up and training started again. Thanks to this level of organisational continuity, when the general amnesty of Republican prisoners came in December 1916, the ICA was quickly able to reorganise. Indeed, the ICA were the first uniformed Republican army to appear on the streets after the rising, when volunteers of the ICA stepped out of the crowd at the traditional New Year's Eve ringing of the bells at Christchurch, shouting "Up the Republic." In late 1916 and early 1917, a new Army Council was established, thanks in the main to the organisational work of Kit Poole and his brother Vincent. A new commandant of the army was appointed, James O'Neill, and work began on rebuilding Liberty Hall, which had been destroyed by British artillery in 1916. Training was stepped up to twice a week, and with the army continuing to grow, 2 battalions were established, one on the north side of Dublin and one on the south side. Other battalions were established elsewhere in the country, but the ICA's main strength remained in Dublin. In 1918, with the Irish Volunteers, now generally referred to as the IRA, reorganising, a meeting was held between the ICA and the IRA, represented by Cathal Brugha and Michael Collins, to see if the cooperation of 1916 could be continued. While it was agreed that the ICA would remain an autonomous body, they would work with the IRA, and the point of connection would be between James O'Neill and Michael Collins. Also in 1918, Constance Markievicz, still a leading member of the ICA, was elected as a Sinn Féin candidate to the revolutionary Dáil Éireann and was appointed the Minister for Labour of the All-Ireland Republic at the meeting of Dáil Éireann in January 1919, at which members of the ICA provided security. With the outbreak of the War for National Liberation again in 1919, the ICA played a full, if overlooked and undervalued role. A separate video would be necessary to detail all of the activities of the ICA between 1919 and 1921, but suffice to say, it played an active military role. The citizen army continued to be involved in arms smuggling and weapons procurement, at which it excelled. It was involved in enforcing the Belfast boycott in support of the Republican forces in the north, and it was centrally involved in intelligence gathering, providing much of the information that led to the attacks against the Cairo gang on the 21st of November 1920. The ICA also had the honour of firing the first